But the point is, it's nowhere near the 95. Getting that other 10% is very, very hard to do compared to what you're saying about them only needing 5% for fuel rods. Well, then the question is, why do they need that? Then the other debate comes in. They're many years away from a primitive A-bomb, no delivery system. The U.S. and England helped give Pakistan nukes and delivery systems. Israel has 400 or more nukes. They have high-tech delivery systems. Why is everybody picking on Iran?
Well, everybody's picking on Iran because if you look through the newspapers over the last several years, Israel is the one saying, please go pick on Iran. We're afraid of Iran. Iran hates us. Ahmadinejad wants to wipe Israel off the map. It's the same kind of propaganda campaign we saw leading into the attack on Iraq. Israel says, go kill them. The U.S. government says, yes, master, I must go kill. And the American kids are going to go die in the deserts of Iran because Israel has declared Iran is the next target and the next enemy. And, of course, Iran is sitting on a lot of oil, especially in the south of the country. Iran is talking about avoiding the dollar as the oil currency of choice. They're going to go to the euros, all kinds of other things which are threats to American financial interests. Because the U.S. doesn't have anything to sell, we're using our threat of war to keep other countries to go along propping up U.S. debt. Now, the other aspect, and the reason they're pushing for yet another war in this huge mess of wars we've already got going, if you go back and you look at history, the U.S. got out of the crash of 1904 by getting into World War I. They got out of the crash of 1929 by getting into World War II. Now we're in the crash of 2007, and it's not a coincidence. Our government is trying to create a major war to distract us all from the fact that the U.S. government is what screwed up the economy and this country.
And by the way, that's not your opinion. The Rand Corporation a year ago said we need a giant multi-theater war on the scale of World War II to bring in the New World Order. And they need that political diversion or stage terror or a swine flu pandemic or all three of them combined. We're entering the danger zone right now. Mike Rivero, let's continue to talk about that on the other side. Then I want to get into the media saying it's the Arabs that are going to kill the dollar when it's our own G20, our own Geithner saying they're open to moving away from the dollar.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
Well, die a miracle, for this is not America. Blossom fields to bloom this season. Promise not to stay too.
Look, we have a corrupt elite who aren't going to turn loose. They're not going to stop what they're doing. They're not going to quit. And as long as we debate Barack Obama and George Bush and the new Mitt Romney, who's probably going to be the next Republican nominee, and, oh, he's a Mormon, he isn't. Oh, look at Brett Favre. You know, he beat his old team yesterday. Look at all the people extorting David Letterman and all these other people. It doesn't matter. It's all theater. Obama is continuing the exact same policies on every point of Bush, just different rhetoric. And things are only going to get worse and worse until we turn around and stop this. Coming up in about 10 minutes, I'm going to play for the world premiere of the new Fall of the Republic trailer. We're going to play it live here on air coming up in about 10 minutes, and we're going to be taking your calls. Going back to Mike Rivero, Mike, looking at the end of the dollar, I saw the headlines in the London Telegraph today. The Independent also reported it. The demise of the dollar are the headlines. And it says oil states are plotting. But we have the G20. We have Russia. We have China. We have the United States. Geithner saying, yeah, we're going to SDRs, bank to bank. We'll still have our regional currencies. It's just going to be global digital transfers where the banks don't just have countries back up new debts they create and that they then loan, but that now the banks will just issue debt themselves. They've always done that through fractional reserve banking. Now they're just removing the final links, and then they're going to make us back up their Ponzi schemes. And so how do you see them killing the dollar? I mean, this continual drumbeat of kill the dollar, kill the dollar, kill the dollar, kill the dollar, kill the dollar. And then I'm seeing product placement in ads for soft drinks about keep the dollar, dump the euro. So there's definitely a big fight going on. From your research, who are the players? I want your perspective. What's going on? What's the larger picture in all of this? And do you see this being a slow death of the dollar, phasing us into this new global bank where the banks openly become the world government?
Well, it's a complex issue, and first of all, Saudi Arabia has already gone public saying that this story about this plot between the oil companies in Russia and the oil countries and Russia and China does not exist. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's so, but the dollar took a major beating, and obviously those countries still holding a lot of dollar reserves don't want that to happen. So there's a big deny, he said, she said going on. I tend to go with trusting Robert Fisk. He's got a good record for accuracy as to what's going on. As for the dollar, it's been dying a slow death ever since 1913, without question. And the problem I have is this whole reserve interest-bearing banking system ultimately is doomed to crash after crash after crash, because the instant that first debt-based note goes into circulation, more money is owed to the banking system than is actually in existence. When everybody talks about all this huge government debt the U.S. owes and all the debt the American people owes, it's not money that ever really existed. It is the accumulated compound interest over decade after decade of reckless spending by the U.S. government. And, of course, the Federal Reserve is a private bank. It's no more federal than Federal Express. They encourage this. They encourage paying only the interest and never the principal. They support congressional campaigns for those candidates who will go on supporting this financial enslavement system. And so the problem is we've reached the point where nobody trusts the dollar anymore because it has to inflate just to cover its own indebtedness. And this is why we're seeing other countries start to very slowly and quietly get out of their dollar positions. Nobody wants to do something that will trigger a panic because that will hurt everybody. But once all the other countries are out of their dollar positions, then the rug is going to get pulled out from under it because there'll be nothing left to support it. In addition to this story that we had about the oil nations wanting to get out of the dollar, we're hearing all this talk about switching the reserve currency of the world away from the dollar, sort of undoing the last of the Bretton Woods Agreement. And without those two factors, creating artificial international demand for the dollars, who would want them? The U.S. doesn't make anything anybody else wants to buy anymore. We're no longer an agricultural giant. We've lost our industry. We've lost our high tech. This nation has been looted. There's a TV show on the History Channel just today, The Crumbling of America, showing how the U.S. federal government has absolutely neglected the infrastructure of this country for decades, and it's literally falling apart. We're dissolving into a third world nation right before our eyes.
And that's the plan. You go back to Maurice Strong. We covered this in my film, Fall of the Republic. They openly wrote and stated at the United Nations Rio de Janeiro 92 meeting on population, they said, we're going to destroy society, destroy industry to save the earth. We're going to create a debt system where the average person, even if they're hardworking, can't get credit or can't get enough of a job to be able to have more than one child. We're going to have a social welfare system that bans any type of family support, that bans neighborhoods keeping each other's kids. That's now happening worldwide. You know, it's global implementation of the new global corporate state. They want us totally dependent on them so they can then social engineer us. They're psychopaths. They're control freaks. They want us chained down in the barn so they can get the blowtorch and pliers out. That's what this control freak religion's all about. And you know, they keep explaining on the news today. I was watching CNBC for 20 minutes. They were saying, look, it's a new economy. We have a 10% unemployment, and this is a good economy, and there's going to be more unemployed. And as long as the banks are making money, our economy's doing good. So we now have a jobless recovery oxymoron. Talk about that, Mike, from your perspective. And then...
basically...
Go ahead.
Basically, the health of the economy is being defined solely in terms of the corporations, which so far are surviving on taxpayer bailouts. And we are literally in a fascist economy where the wealth is being moved from the working and middle classes to the ultra-rich. Profits are kept private. Losses are socialized. That is the hallmark of a fascist economy. And the bottom line is, if anybody wants to know what life is going to be like under this new corporate state, all you have to do is look back in history at the abuses of the company towns that we used to see out in the mining communities and the railroad camps, and how horribly oppressive they were. That is exactly what is in store for all of us. Now, we keep hearing all this stuff about how global government is going to be good and it's going to be wonderful, means the end of war. I'm sorry. Global government is what Alexander the Great wanted. It was what the Roman Caesars wanted. It was what Napoleon wanted. It was what Hitler wanted, and it brought more war and more death and more deprivation. And even after they got something approaching global government, it was a disaster for everybody. When Alexander the Great died, he deliberately shattered his empire to create new civil wars so that nobody else would ever be his equal in history. That's the kind of insanity that we see in the leadership. Every century, planet Earth is cursed with a person or a group of people who think they have a right to control it all, and they want to stand up on top of a pyramid built to their own vanity and scream, I am king of the world, and it doesn't matter how much poverty and disease and starvation and privation and death they bring to the rest of the world to do it.
Yeah, it's Yertle the Turtle. In fact, going back to that, big government is global tyranny, and global government is worldwide straitjacket, nowhere to run, and that's why they want global standardization. The OECD, the IMF, and World Bank all brag. That's what world government is a private group of bankers running your carbon footprint, taxing, tracking everything you do, taxing energy, taxing money transfers, and bankrupting things and re-engineering the economy where you can only get a scholarship to be a cop, or only be a scholarship to be a secret agent, or only get a scholarship to data mine and surveil people.